hello everyone again. This is going to be episode 2 of For the North, Offseason Chatter. I am PJ, I'm in Wisconsin.
Chris here in Minnesota.
Yeah, we're both preparing for the impending doom that is snowpocalypse. So if
you know what, I don't think it's going to be quite as bad as I don't even think it will be the worst one we've had this winter.
No.
I think that came much earlier in the season. But, you know, anything could happen. It is the Midwest. With that, we, live with the lovely weather.
We do.
Sometimes here. I mean, it can be lovely. It can be. For a few weeks out of the year, it's perfect.
Yeah. Like in 1 week in spring and a couple weeks in fall, and then maybe a week in summer.
Yeah, that off winter week too. It's always nice to have snow for a little bit and then have it go away. It just hangs around for a little too long.
Yeah, exactly. Well, besides our weather woes, here we are to, talk more about what happened in the opening of the league year this past Wednesday. So, by the time you listen to this, it's going to be at the end of the week, right? But on Wednesday, that was the 11th of March, the new league year opened up, and that meant a lot of free agency moves. I don't think either of our teams, the Vikings nor the Packers, were really big spenders in free agency. But there was certainly some interesting moves that happened for all of the teams in the NFC North, so we're going to dive a little bit into that. So, because I started last week, I'm going to make you start this week.
All right. So we have the Bears. They have re-signed Case Keenum as a QB backup, who I think is an excellent choice to be on the bench as your QB 2 or 3. Of course, I am biased. He has had some pretty big moments here in Minneapolis, so he will be remembered as the quarterback who brought us there to the NFC Championship and couldn't get it done. That's all I will say on that. They signed Jedrick Wills Jr. as the offensive tackle. As an offensive tackle, and I think that's a good way to start building depth on their O-line. They will need to fix some O-line issues, including finding a starting center. So we will keep an eye on that. For the defensive side of the ball for the Bears, this is going to be huge this offseason and this draft. I would expect them to bring a couple key pieces in again in the draft, but what I'm getting ahead of myself. We'll get to that at a later podcast date. Kobe Bryant from the Seahawks, who was set to make a lot of money and did make a lot of money after the splash he made last year in Seattle, helping them win a Super Bowl, could be a solution to the safety troubles that Chicago had throughout last year. So I think he's going to do very well. How he will do without his supporting cast, we will see. So that is something to keep an eye on during training camp and so on. The Bears also made multiple free agent signings on defense right away with Devin Bush, Neville Gallimore, Braxton Jones, DeMarco Jackson, Daniel Hardy, Street, and Cam Lewis. The Bears are making these signings to hopefully improve a lackluster defense at times. Last year they were great versus average and subpar teams. I felt they were okay versus great offenses last year.
Even bad at times. Yeah, no, I was going to say that defense was even just really the Achilles heel of their run in the playoffs. You could see it near the end of the season against San Francisco. It nearly fell apart against the Packers. That cost them the game against the Rams, and so just ultimately, without a strong defense to lean on, I don't think that they were gonna be able to make as deep of a run as they wanted to in the postseason.
Yep, and there is going to be competition for spots. We know that now. We knew that they were going to spend some money and a lot of money on their defense this year.
Yeah.
This year, because they were not going to spend money last year because of their cap issues.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to expect some defensive battles there. We'll get more into that after the draft.
Yep.
But for right now, we're looking at it from a standpoint that they're going to continue to sign a couple more defensive players before training camp, minicamp, and practice starts, so that they can provide competition all throughout. The D-line, I think, is going to be pretty set, but their secondary is going to be something to watch as we get closer and closer to the season.
Yeah.
Moving on to the Vikings. I know we heard a lot of big news, and we'll get to that in just a moment, but I'm going to save that for last, just because we have a lot of conversation around that. They re-signed Andrew DiPola, who did well for them last year as their long snapper, was great blocking too for the punt team, but they are currently in the market after the release of Ryan Wright, who signed with the Saints. So they will sign a punter here. Either they'll get one in the draft, or they will sign a punter at a low price. I do not think they had the cap room to retain Ryan Wright, which is why they let him go. Re-signed Tavier Thomas, who was the most consistent performing special teams player last year. Even with the penalties, I think penalties can mar a good season, especially from a fan perspective, because as you and I know, we've both made rash judgments before looking at the stats and the player's impact throughout the season. It's just something that fans do. As now analysts, we need to kind of take a step back and look at the bigger picture here. I'm hoping he will be able to clean up his penalty issues this season, but we will see as we get started and underway.
Yep, absolutely.
James Pierre signed as a depth piece for cornerback for Minnesota, who will make a difference when he is on the field. He did great for the Steelers last year when he was on the field. Picked off his cousin, Lamar Jackson.
Yeah.
So, is that going to be a fun Thanksgiving next time they meet? But I do think that he will be kind of a role player, kind of a chess piece, where they'll place him wherever they need to make an impact, especially on critical down plays.
Yeah.
And as we know, Brian Flores is, the mastermind at moving players around. So I'm sure he'll get playing time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Eric Wilson re-signed as one of the key components as a inside linebacker, which will help both the secondary and defensive line, as blitzing will continue to be part of Brian Flores' scheme. Expect him to fake quite often again this year.
Yeah.
Vikings re-sign Aaron Jones, making him a key veteran re-signing. I was glad we could retain him, even though he's slowed down, even if Jordan Mason becomes the starter, even if they get a running back in the draft, I still think he will provide a lot of knowledge to the running back room, and he will be impactful when he is on the field. I do not foresee him being running back one this year, but it could change come NFL season in September. We got a long way to go.
Yeah, I see him. Sorry to interrupt. I see.
Go ahead.
I see Aaron Jones as like a really good like. It reminds me a lot of the early days when they had when New Orleans had Latavius Murray and Alvin Kamara, and you had your 3-down back in Latavius Murray, and then Alvin Kamara at the time was a change of pace, more of a receiving back. So I could see Aaron Jones filling that role as a receiving back. Jordan Mason to me is a better every down back, where Aaron Jones has the better hands to come out of the backfield.
Yes,
and
agreed.
Agreed. Yeah, so a good signing. He's coming off of injury, is he not?
Yeah, I mean, he was injury prone last year. He played off and on. I can't remember the specifics of that, but I could get that for our show notes, which will be located down below. All right, and now let's get on to the biggest news of the week. The biggest news of today, actually. Gosh, it's been less than 24 hours since this has happened.
Yeah, literally today.
Yeah. The Vikings signed Kyler Murray to have a QB battle with J.J. McCarthy. And this is definitely one to keep an eye on. Mm-hmm. A lot of people will go and say that Murray will more than likely be the guy. And this could very well be the case, but I still see an honest competition happening here. I think last year was the fans saying that J.J. McCarthy had no competition. I will say, yeah, that's true. He had no competition because we all saw what Carson Wentz could do, and we all saw what Max Brosmer could do. Mm-hmm. Do I like Max Brosmer as a gopher coming to the Vikings, wanting to try to make a difference here? Absolutely. Will I admit that he has not been the best NFL quarterback? Also, absolutely. So we're going to put Max Brosmer on the bench for a second because the two quarterbacks to watch during training camp and during practices will be Kyler Murray and J.J. McCarthy. I expect that Kyler Murray will get the starting job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I expect that just based off his experience, just based off his time in the NFL. Mm-hmm. Game reps matter, and he's at a lot more than J.J. McCarthy. However, this is not a bad thing for J.J. because I still see him right now, and I believe the Vikings organization sees him right now as the future. Now, could I be wrong? Yes, but you look at it, if I look at the facts from last season, JJ went 6-4.
Mm-hmm. I mean, not bad.
You can't really ask for a better start to your career than that to have a winning record. I mean, you'd like to make the playoffs, but obviously when you were injured, when you were sidelined, it was out of your control. But go ahead, PJ.
Yeah, what I was going to say is I think this is going to be a really great situation all around for JJ, right? Like, I kind of agree with your sentiment, with your kind of assessment of the situation, that I ultimately think that a player of Kyler Murray's caliber is likely going to end up winning the starting job. However, I think it's going to be a really great opportunity for J.J. McCarthy to compete and learn from a veteran. Again, gosh, you guys are freaking lucky and spoiled with Kevin O'Connell at the helm and the bevy of offensive weapons that Kyler Murray and JJ are going to have available to them. Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison and TJ Hawkinson, and you got a phenomenal offensive line and Jordan Mason and Aaron Jones. So I just think this is an incredible, kind of setup for either of the quarterbacks, but I really do think that this can only benefit J.J. McCarthy's development, whether he ends up competing and winning the starting job over Kyler, or whether he fights really hard in training camp and ends up being the backup. I think either way it's going to benefit him, and he's going to learn from this experience and come out of it better. So we'll see.
Yeah, there's a lot of animosity towards JJ just for the Falcons game, but really, the problem last year, the entire problem last year, was the rotating offensive line. And now with Ryan Kelly retiring, School's not going to be back. We know that. We tried it with him. Good riddance. He's well, you look at the reason why JJ got injured during the Falcons game. He was running for his life.
Yeah.
Still making good throws, but running for his life, getting hit every other play.
Yeah.
You cannot sustain that.
Yeah.
You cannot sustain that. And when they were like, oh, yeah, he's out with an ankle sprain, I'm like, okay, that is probably what's going to happen when you get hit that many times.
Yeah.
There is no excuse for anyone to let their QB get hit that many times, though they were still learning to work together.
Yep.
You're still professionals at the end of the day. You got to do what you got to do to win.
Yeah, exactly. You get
I'm not
paid
here to make excuses for anybody.
Yeah, yeah. You get paid to show up. You're getting paid millions of dollars to do it. So, next guy up, you got to be, ready to start. And whether it's a patchwork offensive line or it's your starting offensive line, backups, whatever it is, you got to be ready to play. That's what they pay you to do on Sundays, right? So.
Yeah, be half as good, even half as good as Christian Darrisaw, which is still pretty good.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was like, if you're half as good as Christian Darrisaw, you're, probably one of the top 15, 20 left tackles, right tackles in the NFL, if you're playing at that level.
Well, expect them to add some depth here at the O-line.
Mm-hmm.
I expect the Bears will do the same. I didn't even get into the T.J. Hawkinson restructure, which was huge. I think that gives him a year at least to be like, hey, I can play, see how I do, and then choose to hang it up or not. And there will be... Harrison Smith has not made a decision yet, but the Vikings have released him to give him time to make that decision. Mm-hmm. If he comes back, it will be as a Viking. Otherwise, I'm sure he will be done.
Yeah. I really do think Harrison Smith has Hall of Fame aspirations on his mind, and think he is probably at the stage of, I'd like to go spend time with my family and, kind of hang up the cleats, so to speak. But it can be hard. We've seen it, multiple times. Heck.
That's what we thought last year. That's what we thought last year.
That's what we thought. Right.
Really well too.
You and I have both dealt with quarterbacks or players that say, well, this is the last year. I'm going to be done, and then they keep running it back. So I'm all too familiar with it with. A certain quarterback from Mississippi and a certain quarterback from California. So I'm all too familiar with I'm retiring. I'm not retiring. Oh, wait. I think I'll come back. Oh, no. I'll go play for another team. So, anyhow.
All right. I'm going to toss it east to you, PJ.
All right. Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for all of that. That was a lot. Big news on the Kyler Murray front and the Vikings there, and the Bears as well. So I'm going to throw you a curveball here, and I'm actually going to start with the Lions. So I can't exactly recall because my brain is a little bit foggy if we talked about or addressed the David Montgomery departure when we last had an episode, but kind of the big thing that happened for the Lions to start off before free agency was the departure of David Montgomery and the splitting up of their running back tandem of Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. So to fill that void, to replace David Montgomery, they've signed Isaiah Pacheco, former Chiefs running back. The other signings that they've made are along the offensive line. They signed a center, Cade Mays. They signed another offensive lineman, probably a swing guard or tackle in Larry Borum. They also went ahead and signed, a couple of cornerbacks. So I'm just going to read through these names really quick. Just kind of, they signed Roger McCreary, cornerback. Trevor Nowaski is a linebacker that they signed. Tyler Conklin is a tight end that they signed. Tom Kennedy, a wide receiver. He was retained from their roster. He's actually the longest tenured Lion at this point. Christian Izine is a safety that they signed to deal with him, 1-year deal specifically. Rock Yassin is a cornerback that they signed. And Malcolm Rodriguez, another linebacker that they signed. We mentioned the offensive lineman signings and the guard signing, center signing, as I mentioned. But other big news, backup quarterback, journeyman backup quarterback at this point, Teddy Bridgewater is back in the NFC North, playing as he's now going to be the backup for Jared Goff. So welcome home.
I mean, he's used to being a Lion now and a Viking. He's been a Lion a couple different times in his career. This is his second time, I believe, being a Lion. Also, would you say the biggest need right now is for the Lions is for a decent offensive coordinator who can work with Dan Campbell and some key pieces on defense, because I know their defense last year on paper should have been one of the best in the NFL.
Should have been, yeah.
However, that was not the case.
No, it was not. Yeah, no, I think I would agree with you. A big piece of this off season for the Lions is going to be getting the offensive coordinator hire correct. It did not pan out with the transition from Ben Johnson over to their new offensive coordinator. You could see it on the broadcast. You heard about it in reports from insiders, from ESPN, from all over the place, that Dan Campbell and his offensive coordinator were butting heads, and ultimately led to the offensive coordinator kind of taking a step back and giving play calling over to Dan Campbell. And that felt like when the wheels came off of this thing last year. That Dan Campbell, while he's a great coach, in my personal opinion, is a little bit too much of a riverboat gambler and a little bit too emotional of a coach to deal with the X and O's of play calling. Big picture stuff, yes, he's a great motivator of men and can really get what he wants out of those players and, get the culture shift that he's been looking for. But I think it's going to be key to get that hire right in the off season. And there's not a lot of movement or news on that so far, so it's a development that we're going to keep kind of updated on and see what happens as we head through the rest of March and into the draft. So we'll see.
Yeah, and that defense is going to we'll see if they're going to struggle. Like last year was either sink or swim. I feel like it was more the offense keeping them out on the field for too long that provided that led to some key injuries. It was just a disaster for the Lions organization, and this year there needs to be major turnaround. I don't think making the playoffs this year is enough for Dan Campbell to keep his job long term. I think he will be on the hot seat, and what happens if they make the playoffs during that playoff game, no matter if it's wild card or a divisional round, will determine his future. Also, if they don't make the playoffs, Dan Campbell is done as a Lion this year, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would agree with you pretty strongly on that sentiment. That really Dan Campbell, had a window open, and we've discussed this in previous episodes, when we were talking during the regular season. Dan Campbell has had a ton of opportunities with this window pretty wide open for the Lions to be a deep playoff contender each year, to make a run at the NFC Championship, to make a run and try and get to a Super Bowl, and it just has not come to fruition. And the coaching decisions and the hires and the departure of Ben Johnson, the loss of other coordinators after a successful year, last year, it was, it just kind of, it really did kind of set back what the Lions were trying to do. So yeah, I think this is a big year to see. I think they're going to use the regular season and whether or not they can win the division, make the playoffs, and how deep they get in that as a barometer for Dan Campbell's job performance. So another situation that we'll kind of keep updated on. With that, I'm going to shift to the Packers and talk about just strictly from an acquisition standpoint, what is happening with the Packers. So the biggest news that's not an acquisition for the Packers is that Malik Willis, their star-studded backup quarterback, ended up going to the Dolphins and made a bunch of money. So they likely in the offseason, and as we get closer to the draft, we'll talk about this, are going to have to start looking at whether they want to sign a veteran backup quarterback or address that need in the draft. But that's, as I said, a separate part from their acquisitions that they made. I had mentioned last episode that I did not think the Packers were going to be a splashy, they weren't going to make big splashy moves because of the Micah Parsons trade from last year. I was slightly right, slightly wrong on that, actually, this year, to my pleasant surprise. So they actually went out, first move that they made in free agency, they went out and they traded for the former Colts linebacker Zaire Franklin. He's, in previous years, 2023, 24, has had success with the Colts organization. So he was traded. It was a straight-up player trade. Colby Wooden was sent over to Indianapolis, and Zaire Franklin was traded to Green Bay to replace Quay Walker after he signed with the Raiders. The other big signing that happened is the signing of Benjamin St-Juste. He is a former corner for the Washington Commanders, as well as most recently the Los Angeles Chargers. So he is a tall, athletic boundary corner that should hopefully help out for the Packers. There's more work to be done there, I definitely think, because that corner room was in a bit of a state of disarray at the end of the year, and actually all year last year for the Packers. But he was signed, Benjamin St-Juste was signed to replace Nate Hobbs after he was released. And I think the Packers organization was finally able to admit that Nate Hobbs was not a good financial investment for last year. Someone on this podcast, my co-host, might have mentioned that. Other big signing, to shore up the defensive line, the Packers went out and signed a 2-year deal with Javon Hargrave, who was released from the Vikings actually a couple of days ago now. So he is a veteran defensive lineman. He's a bit older, 33 years old, but when he had his most success was under Jonathan Gannon. So Javon Hargrave is going to go back now and be in a Jonathan Gannon defensive coordinated system. So we will see how that pans out for the Packers. But those are kind of the three big splashy things that they did. Again, as I said, I'm a little bit surprised that they went ahead and made those moves. Other things are just kind of standard releases, but we're not talking about that. We'll address that at kind of another time. but they also, as a depth piece, brought Jonathan Ford back on the defensive line. They also signed back Josh Wiley, their backup or their third string tight end, and then signed or extended Sean Ryan, who is one of their guards or has been one of their rotating linemen throughout the years. So that is a good step towards shoring up the offensive line. But I think if you're truly going to be successful, the Packers need to go out and probably draft an offensive lineman or use some capital to go ahead and try and make a trade more near the end of, as we get closer to the season here. So that's my current assessment of things, but I think there's a lot to be done in the offseason still, because the big thing for the Packers is that they've got some major injuries that they're going to be dealing with. They're going to be missing Tucker Kraft for the start of the season because he's going to be coming off an ACL tear. Micah Parsons will likely not be back until earliest October, but that's an optimistic. We're probably talking about November for Micah Parsons, and then Devontae Wyatt, their big defensive tackle. He broke his ankle, and he could be back by day one, and be a day one starter. But I'm thinking probably they'll take their time, and we'll probably see him in October as well. So,
yeah, are you a little bit skeptical with the signing of Hargrave? Are you like, oh, hey, do the Vikings know something that the Packers didn't? Just because what I saw out of him last year versus what I saw out of him years before. Last year, I was all for signing him.
Yeah.
Just because he had made big splashes on. He had made big splashes on most of the teams he was on throughout college, even. And I look at this signing as like his last chance to make a bunch of money before he signs minimal deals and then potentially retires.
Yeah.
I would be a little bit skeptical of what can he do to show that he's worth his contract. Of course, the Vikings had to cut him because of, cap issues and all of that, and he wanted more money. And I see him struggling just a little bit with, sorry, a little brain fog. We do this a little bit late. We've all done it before, yeah. Man, I see a few issues just with him not being able to get to the quarterback as much. Although I still think it will provide a few QB hurries.
Yeah, so I think I certainly, when you sign an older veteran player like a Javon Hargrave, someone that's aging, I think this is more for the Packers a signing of necessity to address a current kind of spot where they need depth, they need a veteran presence, while they're guys that they're young guys, they're guys that they have a lot of capital invested in are getting back to healthy, correct? I agree with you that I don't see Javon Hargrave as a guy that's going to necessarily wreak havoc and get to the quarterback like a Myles Garrett or a Micah Parsons is designed to be, but I definitely think that you can use him in a role where he provides a kind of steady presence on that defensive line for the younger Packers players. And I think they can certainly learn from that. And I think he can also be, I really hope that he can be a good run stuffer for the Packers, because when they have been most successful, they are able to play with a lead because of what their offense can do, and their defense keeps them in games because they are stopping the run and they've had good safety play or good corner. So I think that's what I see Javon Hargrave as, that I scratched my head a little bit as to why the Vikings released him, understood the cap situation, but then did have a moment of, of a little bit excitement, a little bit of timidness, because it's not like you knew that the Packers were not going to go out and get a guy like Max Crosby or Trey Hendrickson. That wasn't the type of signing they were going to make. It was going to be a guy like a Javon Hargrave or somebody else that's, more veteran, a little bit of a cheaper cost. And I think probably in the end, we did probably overpay for him just a little bit because of necessity that we have on the defensive line right now. So
that's fair, and I also would like to add, I see the Packers defense struggling again without some key changes.
Yeah.
At least during the beginning of the season,
Oh,
without
yeah.
Micah Parsons, and it'll depend on the offensive turnovers too. We'll see what happens, but we will analyze all that good stuff here in a few weeks after the draft.
Yeah, we'll have a lot to speculate when that happens. But yeah, that's that, like I said, I think this year I was pleasantly surprised that the Packers aren't sitting there and doing nothing, but they're certainly not going out and making super huge flashy signings in free agency. I think they're doing what they need to do to address the position weaknesses that they had in last year's defense, as well as their offensive line. Like that was a big sticking point last year as to why they could not be successful. Their offensive line was very inconsistent, very up and down, and we never really got a kind of full, really A-plus performance from them, and that led to problems with keeping Jordan Love upright. It led to Josh Jacobs having not as productive of a year as he could have or should have had last year. So, we'll see. Hopefully we do something, but not having those first-round picks is going to hurt this year. We're going to see what we're going to do in the draft, but
we've both been through it. It'll be okay.
It will be okay. It will be okay. Chris is going to have to call me to talk me off of the ledge here when the Packers do something really stupid with their second round pick. So.
And then I'll explain why it's a good pick and what I've analyzed, because I've called it on a few of the guys, I might say, just by me, I'll go watch game tape all day.
Yeah, you will.
About it, yeah.
You will. Yeah, he goes deep into the lab, and then he figures out exactly why the draft pick works. So I'm the emotional one. He's the analytical one, and we together we make a pretty decent analyst, we think.
Right. At least a halfway decent one, at least. All right. With that, I think we're going to sign off. This has been episode 2 of Offseason Chatter. If you like what you hear, like and subscribe down below, and leave a comment on what you think. We will be back next week, probably with very little to report, and some more speculation. Pretty soon we'll be getting into the draft chatter, and that'll take up most of the end of March. So stay tuned. Have a good week, y'all, and let's get excited for this upcoming NFL season.
Let's do it. All right. Thank you, everybody. Peace out.